Trump's specific strategy is exploited by Moscow, I believe. So it's about Trump being very inconsistent and basically being ready to talk to Putin, to go to these summits, to meet him, and to show signs that there is some kind of peace process. And Putin just exploits this to stall, and to postpone the resolution, and at the same time to show the world that he is actually involved in some kind of peace process that is actually meaningless.
The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says any discussion about security guarantees for Ukraine must include Russia. He says without Moscow's involvement, any talks would be a road to nowhere. Ukraine's President Zelensky has accused President Putin of trying to wriggle out of a face-to-face meeting. Meanwhile, the EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, says that any peace deal that lets Putin keep Ukrainian territory is, quote, a trap that Putin wants us to walk into. So where exactly are we? Let's speak to Ilya Matveyev, exiled Russian political scientist at the Public Sociology Laboratory, who joins us from Belgrade. Ilya, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I note that after the Alaska summit, you commented that Putin got what he wanted, to play for time and press his military advantage. Is peace and the conversation about peace being exploited by Moscow as some sort of diplomatic tool rather than a sort of path to conflict resolution?
Not just peace as a kind of concept, but Trump's specific strategy is exploited by Moscow, I believe. So it's about Trump being very inconsistent and basically being ready to talk to Putin, to go to these summits, to meet him, and to show signs that there is some kind of peace process. And Putin just exploits this to stall, and to postpone the resolution, and at the same time to show the world that he is actually involved in some kind of peace process that is actually meaningless.
And what do you make of Sergei Lavrov's commentary that Russia must be involved in security guarantees? What could that mean?
I think that means like veto power over specific arrangements for Ukraine. Like, for instance, the idea that foreign troops in Ukraine, troops from NATO countries in Ukraine, are completely unacceptable. Maybe the size of Ukrainian army, the scale of military supplies to the Ukrainian army. So the Kremlin wants a veto over all these matters. And for the Kremlin, that means, being part of these security guarantees.
Do you think Russia views peace and perhaps Western definitions of peace as simply a function, a role, or a part of pursuing total victory? And I guess there is some evidence from history, isn't there, after the annexation of Crimea and then the all-out conflict that we are witnessing now, that whether peace is just a chapter in its ambition to conquer Ukraine?
Yes, I think so. It's very possible. And I think that Putin maintained his maximalist demands and his kind of maximalist idea about subjugating Ukraine and ultimately depriving Ukraine of sovereignty. This is still for him on the agenda. And he doesn't really know whether this complete victory is possible. But I think that he hopes that it's possible, and he thinks that there is a possibility for some kind of decisive military breakthrough, and so he stalls for time precisely to wait for his breakthrough. That's what he hopes for.
Yeah. And with that in mind, that sort of all-conquering Russia is driven by ideology, and I wonder how that actually undermines Western efforts for peace, which is so largely based on economic sanctions, for example, to try to restrain Russia's advantage, which I think it's fair to say hasn't been overly effective anyway. But whether Putin and Russia see economic constraint as anything, really, when it comes up against the conquering ideology.
I think that you are right. in that ideology really just overpowers kind of rational considerations because if rational considerations played a role, then this invasion wouldn't have happened. In terms of the economy, for instance, if it would have made sense to just not invade Ukraine and reap the economic benefits of peace. And also Nord Stream 2, this forgotten pipeline, was just about to be opened in 22. And instead of opening this gas pipeline, really important for Russian economy and European economy, Putin decided to invade Ukraine. So yes, economic considerations are not the most important thing for him, but it's part of his calculations. And so the problem here is that the Trump administration, they want to have some kind of peace negotiations, which is in itself not a problem. The problem is that Trump is not ready to have any kind of serious leverage, right? So he always, not always, just sometimes threatens Putin with some kind of sanctions escalation. But it's clear that his administration hasn't prepared this escalation, hasn't prepared a comprehensive plan, right? And so Putin knows that there is no real plan. And so he's not afraid of this.
Yeah. When you consider what you have left behind in Russia, Ilya, how do you reflect on that? I think you fled Russia shortly after the full-scale invasion in 2022. And I just wonder how you consider the state of the nation of Russia now, sort of, what are we, 3 years on from the all-out invasion?
I mean, the thing is, Russia is essentially under martial law. So it's a wartime country, and in terms of censorship, in terms of repression, in terms of lack of any legal opposition whatsoever. So this is a country under martial law, and this is the most important thing. Another thing is that the Kremlin has very extensive plans for kind of rebuilding Russian society based on ideology, based on indoctrination, based on using the whole education system as a kind of indoctrination device. So this is very scary, obviously, because already Russia is difficult to recognize for me. I mean, it's very different from a country I left like 3 years ago, but it's going to be even more different in the future because of these ideological efforts, because it's everywhere. It's in schools, it's in universities. They also try to monopolize all kind of education. So like public lectures and basically all efforts to inform, to educate. The Kremlin wants to monopolize all of them, right? And so-called foreign agents like myself, starting in the 1st of September, were prohibited from any kind of educational activities, including online educational activities from abroad.
Right.
So this is just like completely illegal for us, according to Russian law.
It's astonishing to hear of the demise, even in the last few years. Ilya, I hope we can keep in touch and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for
now.
inviting me.
Thank you. That's Ilya Matveyev, an exiled Russian political scientist, speaking there about how perhaps Western countries have not quite got to grips with the ideological drive of Russia when it comes to conquering Ukraine. And so economics, sanctions, etc., kind of fade into insignificance when you're up against that and trying to undermine that ideology and indoctrination, as he's just described it.